So although relocation has been somewhat on the radar for the A's in the past couple of years with these sort of arbitrary cities such as Las Vegas and others, a lot of people sometimes tend to forget that their relocation threats have been kind of going on for really their whole time in Oakland, 50 plus years at this point, where the A's have, their ownership has threatened to move, starting with the early ownership and then, of course, in the early 2000s with more local stuff. So it's been really strange, but I thought, let's take a look at some of the relocation plans over the years. There's been quite a few of them. So yeah, the first early example of them trying to move was in 1970. Of course they moved to Oakland in 68, but right after they moved to Oakland, there was talks about Charlie Finley. Of course he was a great owner, but he also was kind of, a weird owner in some ways. He did a lot of strange things, and he wanted to move the team to Toronto, which of course never happened. And yeah, so basically, 5 years later, we go to 1975, where Charlie Finley, he wanted to move the A's to Chicago, Illinois, and then have the White Sox move to Seattle. So, and then the A's would become the White Sox, reportedly. So that was just a really weird, sort of situation where Seattle would, gain a team, and then Oakland would move to Chicago, become the White Sox. And, just a really strange scenario. Of course, never happened. 1978 was the next example where the A's tried to move to Colorado. That never happened, of course. There was sort of a controversy in that relocation going on with public funding. Of course, that never happened. We have the Rockies in the current day. So that never happened, of course. Yeah, I mean, really after 1978, there were more smaller move options that were talked about. Different parts of Oakland, of course, but out of Oakland, in terms of that, I mean, Vegas was talked about in the mid 90s. So that was, definitely something that is talked about now, but it was also something that was talked about back then. With the Haas family selling the team, things got sort of strange. Yeah, so definitely weird. And then really in the early 2000s is when San Jose kept getting brought up. And that was probably the biggest controversy because the Giants having territorial rights in San Jose, it sort of blocked all possibility of an A's move there. It was brought to the Supreme Court. It was, tried the A's, it was very complicated. San Jose tried to get, the case open again. It didn't work. And then simultaneously, there was some sort of parallel paths going on because simultaneously with San Jose being brought up, there were plans in Oakland, near City Hall, near other parts of the Coliseum site. So that was sort of strange. 2000 is when San Jose was first talked about, and then in between 2000 and 2006, I want to say, there was more talks about San Jose. So yeah, and then so in 2006 is when Fremont was first brought up. I mean, I doubt most people outside of the Bay know where or what Fremont is. It's in Alameda County, but it's near San Jose. It's near the San Jose area in terms of proximity. So that was talked about. It was going to be Cisco Field. They already had the renderings and stuff made for it. It was actually an interesting rendering. It never had, a legitimate really plan to happen because, I mean, it had a plan, but it never was pushed forward. But it was close, and it was going to be open in 2010 if they did open it, but of course it never happened. Then finally in 2009, a year before they were expected to move into Fremont, never happened. There were too much, variables that were being discussed that wouldn't work out. For example, increased traffic. 2009 is when San Jose was brought up again. There was a lot of talk about that in terms of how the A's could move there. Were they going to move near SAP Center? It was definitely a long battle. It was 6 years really with this big controversy, dealing with the MLB, dealing with the city of San Jose, dealing with the Giants, and it never happened, of course. So then, after that, the A's were talking about plans in Oakland, but then 2012, finally Cisco Field is talked about again, but this time in San Jose, near SAP Center. So it was, definitely interesting. A year later, though, the MLB, just disallowed the A's from doing it because, San Jose wanted them, and the Giants, they had territorial rights, so it didn't work. And really after that, there's been no serious move talks. I mean, I guess the cities that were sort of brought up last year, like Las Vegas, Nashville, Portland, whatever, Montreal, these random cities, and I don't think those really count because they're not serious plans that had votes involved and whatnot. But those are kind of like, just in a nutshell, all of the A's relocation ideas over their 60 or their 50 plus year history in Oakland. But many attempts at it. They've had many attempts, and it's really been like 52 years where they've been trying to move out of Oakland, which is really strange considering that they've been in Oakland for 54 years. So anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts. I'll see you guys later, and yeah, go A's.